Hey, it's Foreclosure Girl Boss, and welcome to my YouTube channel where I show investors how to level up and buy REO foreclosure properties like a boss. So, if you've been here before, welcome back. If this is your first time, welcome. So, I want to talk to you today about the top three ways that investors lose money when purchasing REO foreclosure properties. I'm going to count down from number three and get to number one. All right, let's go. So, number three, not doing their own due diligence. Not doing their own due diligence. So, what I mean by that is investors, you have to do your own due diligence when you're buying these REO properties, right? You have to make sure that if you're going to fix and flip and resell it, is it going to be a good resale property? Is it going to be a good resale property? If you're going to buy and hold, like you're going to buy it and put a renter in there and be a landlord, is it a good rental property? Will it make a good rental? So do your due diligence. Whatever your exit strategy is, do your due diligence to make sure that that property is going to fit good with your exit strategy. So that's number three. Number two, not knowing who is responsible for what. As in, who is responsible for paying for this? Who's responsible for paying for that? Does the bank pay for it? Does the seller pay for it? Or do you pay for it? Who's responsible? So if there's something that comes up during the process, so let's say you're under contract and there's something that comes up. There's a fee that needs to be paid. There's something that comes up that's unexpected. Whose problem is that? Is it your problem? Do you pay for it? Or does the seller pay for it? So you need to know that, because not knowing that, and if you happen to default on the contract, then you will lose your EMD, your earnest money deposit. And as I stated before in one of my other videos, your earnest money deposit can be up to 20% of the purchase price. And typically for investors, it's about 10% of the purchase price. So if you are purchasing a property for $100,000, your EMD may be $10,000. Now you do have some sellers of REO properties where the EMD isn't that much, so you may only put down a 500, 1,000, 5,000. But there are some out there where the EMD is 10%, and I have seen as much as 20%. And you will lose that EMD if you default on the contract. So you need to know who's responsible. When things come up, who's responsible for paying for what? And what things can come up that will cost you money, right? So you need to know that so that you don't default on the contract and lose your EMD. And the number one reason why investors lose money when buying REO foreclosure properties, and really, this really goes for any property, but specifically for REO properties, is not knowing their numbers, not doing the numbers correctly. And what I mean by that is you're going to purchase it for what amount? You're going to rehab it for how much? What is your scope of work? What are all the fees associated with buying this property? What are all the fees associated with holding on to this property until you actually get it sold? How long is it going to take you to put it on the market? How long is it going to take you to rehab it? How long do you think it's going to take it to sell? Once you get it under contract, how long is it going to take to close? What are your numbers? What are your numbers? Because not knowing your numbers is the number one reason why investors lose money when purchasing REO foreclosure properties. And that's because it's specifically REO properties that I'm talking about right now, because with REO properties, there are a lot of fees that investors don't know about when they get into the contract. They didn't read the contract, and unfortunately, neither did their agent. And there are some fees in there that traditionally the seller would be responsible for, but because this is an REO, this particular seller isn't paying for it. So if the investor has bought regular resale properties in the past, they assume that the seller is going to pay for certain things. But because this is an REO property, this particular seller is not going to pay for those things. So the things that you thought we're going to be taken care of by the seller now are your responsibility. So guess what? That's going to cut into your budget. That's going to cut into your bottom line number. So you have to know your numbers. You have to know how to do your numbers. You have to know, okay, what expenses am I going to have? What expenses am I going to have? So that is the number one reason, guys, why investors lose their money when buying REO properties specifically. Because like I said, it's important to know your numbers for any property that you buy as an investor, but specifically and especially for REO properties, because REO properties are not sold like traditional regular resale properties. There's other costs that are included with buying these type of properties that may come up that you may need to pay before you get to the closing table. And then there may be extra closing costs that you need to pay, like a technology fee, a web fee, a portal fee, an additional admin fee. All fees that are charged by the seller, in addition to what would be your traditional closing cost. So again, guys, you have to know your numbers. You have to make sure that you are, adding room in your budget for things that may come up and things of that nature. So, that's the number one reason that I see investors lose money when buying REO properties, because they just don't know how to do their numbers when it comes to these type of properties. They don't understand the things that can come up. They don't understand what they're responsible for paying, out of their pocket, what the seller pays for, and therefore it kind of just skews their numbers and it cuts into the budget. So that's the number one reason why. So I hope that this video really helped to break down the top 3 ways that investors lose money when buying REO properties. And I don't think I need to remind you, but in case I do, the link is somewhere around here for my e-guide, where I break all of that down for you. So you don't have to guess about it. Don't have to try to figure it out. Don't have to keep coming on YouTube and figuring out when I'm going to post another video. You don't have to go look at other videos. You don't have to surf the web. You don't have to try to find the meat and throw away the bones and try to figure out what's the right thing, what's the wrong thing, who's telling you correct information, what's misinformation. You don't even have to do all that. I've saved you so much time. I have saved you so much time. Somewhere around here is my e-guide. Get the e-guide. Who better to learn from to buy REO properties than a foreclosure listing agent? I don't even know of anyone else better to learn from than a foreclosure listing agent. And I'm sure you have others out here that are probably showing you how to do it, maybe investors showing you how to do it, and that's great, and I'm sure they know a lot, but they are not a foreclosure listing agent. They did not work for the asset manager. They do not talk to the asset manager. So who better to learn from? A foreclosure listing agent or an investor guru or someone else that's claiming to be a guru, and they're getting their information from online. They're getting it from Chat GPT, AI. I mean, of course you could learn from them, and not that, they couldn't teach you something, but who better to learn from? Who better to learn from? So anyway, guys, get my e-guide so that you can learn how to buy these foreclosures like a boss. Level up, get ahead of your competition, and stop giving your money away. Stop losing money and buying these type of properties. All right, guys, toodles.